Hello and welcome to the Pup Mommy, where it's all about the pups. They come first. In this two-part series, I'll talk about the differences between adopting a pup from a breeder versus adopting a pup from a rescue, because I've done both. In my over 30 years of owning dogs, I've adopted dogs directly from breeders as well as gone rescue. Whether you choose the route of breeder or the route of rescue, do your homework first. Because all breeders and all rescues are not created equal. And in doing your homework first, it's better than the potential of frustration, anger, and crying 3 months after you've adopted the puppy and spent hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars to do so. And I refer you to my 8-part video series, To Puppy or Not to Puppy, which takes you through exactly what you can expect when owning a puppy. Now, the major differences between breeders and rescues for me fall into 7 categories. And in this part 1 video, I'll go over expense of adoption, dog availability, the buying and adoption process, and then in part 2, we'll go over the health of the dog, the temperament of the dog, the warranty and guarantee that a breed and rescue will give you, not give you, and then also the return surrender policy. Now, I put timestamps in the description section for each of these categories to help you along. So let's begin. First category, expense. Now, when you go to a reputable breeder, starting prices for purebred dogs usually start around $1,000, and then they go up from there. And by that I mean it climbs into several thousands of dollars. And so you may say, well, why the expense? Why? Well, for these reasons. First of all, you have the breeder and the breeder's costs. And I will leave a link in the description section to a breeder's website that I find to be very realistic and believable in terms of the costs that a reputable breeder sustains in producing a litter. And while the link is for Doberman Pinschers, I think the costs are definitely relatable for any breed. Now, the other thing I will say about this too, again, there are all kinds of breeders out there. So check out my video, Finding a Breeder, so that it will take you through the many different kinds of breeders that are out there so that you can familiarize yourself with them as well. Again, all breeders are not created equal. The second reason for the expense is, of course, the breed of dog and the law of economics. It's a law of supply and demand. You're going to certainly find more breeders for Labrador Retrievers than you will for Irish Wolfhounds, and you'll certainly find more breeders for Scottish Terriers than you will for Boykin Spaniels, and so on it goes. And then, of course, third is the dog or the pups itself. Are they from champion bloodlines? And keep in mind that this is different than having an AKC registered dog. Dogs who come from champion bloodlines, will have the designation CH or GCH in their pedigree. And for dogs like, I don't think you can see him, and for dogs like German Shepherds, they will also have designations like SCH3, IPO3, which is Schutzhund, in their in their designations. So become familiarized with that too if you're planning on a German Shepherd. Now, another determining factor is also how the breeder prices their pups. Now, breeders will price pups like first pick, second pick, third pick, fourth pick, and this is entirely subjective. This is done by the breeder after a certain number of weeks. They take a look at their puppies, and then they look at the coloring, they look at the skeletal structure, they look at the movement, for example, and then they make the determination which of the puppies that they have are the closest in conformation to the breed standard, which feeds into how some breeders also price their pups, such as show quality versus pet quality. And of course, between the pics and the pet and the show, this can add hundreds of dollars to the price tag of your dogs, or to the price tag of the dog, I should say. Also, breeders will, on occasion, have adult dogs for sale. And these dogs were usually used for breeding purposes. And after about 3 litters or 4 litters over a period of years, the dogs are retired. And the dogs at this time are somewhere like 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. And the benefit is that they're trained, they're housebroken, and depending on the breed, they can have a lifespan of an additional 5 to 10 years and possibly more. So now that we've covered the expense regarding the breeder, let's look at the expense of adopting from a shelter or a rescue. People adopt from a rescue or a shelter because of financial reasons and or because they want to save a life. And it's part of their core beliefs. And it's their belief system. Now, with a rescue, there are adoption fees, and I've noticed that the adoption fees will usually average somewhere around $300 a dog. But they can also, depending on some locations and depending on the dog and the rescue, can even easily go to $500. Now, many rescues also have a fee scale, and it starts at the higher end of this fee scale for the puppies, and then the young dogs, which are usually 1 to 3 years old, and then you have the adult dogs, which are about in the 4 to 7 range, and then the senior dogs, which usually start at around 8 years. Now, depending on the rescue and how long that they've had the dog, and especially if it comes to seniors or special needs dogs, the rescue may decide to waive the adoption fee. So you would have to check with the individual rescue. Now, too, when it comes to special needs dogs, there are rescues, and you usually find this with breed-specific, well-established rescues. Sometimes these rescues will help the people who adopt special needs dogs, and they'll help fund the expenses. Not all of them, but some may. And when I talk about special needs dogs, these are dogs that, let's say, may be incontinent because of a previous disease or injury, or they may have a genetic disorder such as Wobbler's syndrome, or an injury from a previous time in their lives. But in general, they fall into the category of needing to be on medications for the rest of their lives. Now, special needs dogs also are generally watched over very carefully by the rescue and the fosters caring for them. And generally, they will adopt these dogs out to people who are within a special X number of miles of the rescue, and that the rescue feels that people who are going to be adopting these dogs are going to be able to care for them and understand the needs of a special needs pup. Category number 2, the availability of the pups. What is the difference between going to a breeder and a rescue? Well, when you go to a specific breed, when you want a specific breed of pup, I should say, and you go to a breeder, again, it depends on the type of breeder. Some breeders will only have 1 to 2 litters a year, and other breeders who have more stud dogs and more females available may have 6 to 10 litters a year. And depending upon the breed of dog, a litter may consist of 3 to 4 puppies, while larger dogs may have 5, 6, 8 puppies available from a litter. Now, when it comes to rescue, there are breed-specific rescues who are dedicated to one breed and only adopt out their dogs on a local, state, or regional basis. Then there are also general rescues where they have all kinds of dogs available. They're primarily mixed breeds, although there are some purebreds in there, mixed in there. And because both kinds of rescues are primarily staffed by volunteers, the number of dogs that they have available, it depends upon the space they have and the number of volunteers. So when you are adopting from a rescue, there is usually a steady inflow and outflow of pups. So if your heart is set on a specific color or size or weight or coat or temperament, you'll probably find that dog within a short period of time, or even instantly. But otherwise, you certainly have a much wider, unfortunately, have a much wider variety of pups to choose from. So bottom line, when you go to a breeder, you're subject to availability. With rescue, unfortunately, availability is generally not a problem. There are so many pups out there. Now, category 3, the adoption process. Okay, so let's say you've done your research and you've Googled online and you've found the right breeder or you've found the right rescue. So now what do? Well, for breeders, they usually have an email, they have a website, they have some form of communication. And sometimes breeders will also have a link on their website to an application, or what I call like a pre-approval form. And on this form, they will ask you certain questions like about the environment in which the pup is going to be raised, if you have experience with the breed, how many people are in your home, what kind of home you have, and so to speak. And then based on your submission and your answers, the breeder may or may not follow up with you. They may contact you with a follow-up phone call or a follow-up email. Now, if they do, this is where they're going to then ask even more questions. They're going to tell you a little bit more about the pups they have available, when they have available, and at what price. And please note too here, breeders are not generally open. In fact, I don't think I've ever found a breeder who is open to negotiate the price. The price is the price. The breeders know what other pups are selling for. They know what their clientele is willing to pay. And more importantly, they know their costs. So if they don't sell the pup to you, they're going to sell it to someone else. Now, if you both agree that if you and the breeder both agree that you're right for one of the pups, then the breeder will take a deposit from you. And if the litter is not born yet, they will take a gender preference from you. And then depending upon where the breeder is located, you have the option of either driving or flying to their kennel, to their facility, to pick up the pup. Or some breeders will ship the dog to you, but at certain times of the year. In my experience, I have done both. I have flown to Washington, I have flown to Kansas City to pick up a dog. I have also had the dogs shipped to me out over here where I go to the airport and pick them up. Now, in these COVID times, many breeders will make arrangements with you to pick up the pup at a location near their facility, but not right at their kennel for safety purposes. Other breeders, as I mentioned, may meet you at the airport, and some even will offer a delivery service to surrounding areas within, let's say, 150, 200 miles of their facility, of their kennel. Now, with rescues, the process is pretty similar, but yet it's different. Because rescues are in the business of placing their dogs in the right homes because they don't want the dog back. They want to make certain, and they want to make room, first of all, they want to make room for rescuing other pups. And some rescues have extensive applications with many questions, which some potential adopters may find very tedious. But again, look at it from the rescue's perspective, look at it from their point of view. Especially the breed rescues, where a lot of the volunteers are themselves owners of that particular breed, are very in tune with it, they understand it, they know it. And the dogs that they have, that they're fostering, they become part of the family. So they're very particular about where these rescued pups are going, and they want what's best for them. So when you're completing your application and the questionnaire, understand the reasoning behind it, and that the rescue wants to ensure that it's a good fit for you and the dog, and that you'll both be happy. Because dogs, like to rescuers, are this like to breeders also, they are not commodities. Now, after you've completed the application, rescues usually will contact you for a phone interview. And in normal times would even do an in-home, outside home check as well before they adopt out the dog to you. Of course, this is in normal times. In normal times too, you have the opportunity to meet the prospective dog at a mutually agreed upon place or location. And the rescue would sometimes bring the dog actually to your home. In either case, you would be expected to have all family members present, as well as any other pets that you may have in the house, to see if there's going to be a problem with the dog or a cat or a ferret or anything else. The meet and greet may go well, but then the meet and greet may not go well. So afterwards, the volunteer, usually who brings the dog, for the meet and greet, will do a write-up and a recommendation to the rescue, as will the volunteer who does the home check, because in so many words, the home check is there to ensure that if you say you have a fenced yard, you really do have a fenced yard. And say if you're going to be adopting a large dog, is there room for the dog? Because again, the rescue doesn't want the dog back. They prefer not to. And believe me when I say this to you, dog adoptions can go south very quickly if you're not used to owning a dog, or you get the wrong dog, or if you become overwhelmed because you didn't understand how much work a dog really is. And with that in mind, I encourage you to check out my video series, To Puppy or Not to Puppy, and especially video number 1, which is titled, Are You Ready for a Baby? Are You Ready for a Child? So with that, I'm going to close part 1 of this series, and we're going to move on to part 2. If you have any questions or comments, or would like a one-on-one with me, if you need assistance in finding the right puppy or dog for you or your family, I'll leave my contact information. So with that, thank you for watching, and don't forget to click the subscribe button. And let's move on to part 2 in this series. Thank you.